Thank you. Thank you, one second.
Okay, I will call this meeting order. It's quarter 3. This is the subcommittee on bias-based policing committee. Carter, would you mind going briefly over the agenda?
Sure. Tonight you're going to finalize the panel for the community forum, talk about the outreach efforts for the community forum, and set your meeting schedule and hear from the public. I think you're also doing some media pieces that Joe will tell you more about.
Okay. And before we, thank you, Carter. Before we get started, I want to say thank you, Joe, for, I know you've been working extra hard on this. And it doesn't matter what it is, I think it's good to come to. And to all of the rest of you too, for being flexible and putting out the energy. Obviously, we don't have any people in the public, but I would like to ask the committee for the flexibility in case public does show up, that we move that and we in fact add that towards the end. We have community dialogue, but in case somebody wants to actually take time, that we would be allowed that.
Do we need a motion for that, or just do it?
If they get here, let's just let them talk.
So, I want to start out by saying that hopefully everybody is on the same page on the goals, what we need to accomplish. So, I will be asking the commission for more for clarity in terms of whether or not, I want to specifically be told whether or not the policy that the police commission is contemplating is in fact some kind of racial profiling policy or is not. With all these changes and everything else that we're doing, I'm afraid we might be getting a washed down policy on profiling, and I think that's not the intent of it. However, if in fact it needs to be two separate policies, then it needs to be said. I've heard quite a bit from folks. I actually directed them to the police commission, because that's what I'm hearing.
Yes.
Are we finally getting a racial profiling policy or not? And because this is bias-based policing, and there really, in fact, there's no reference. So I will be asking police commission about that. Now, when we were contacting potential panelists, I'm just going to assume that we told them about the bias-based policing policy. And I assume we're going to be sending them a copy of the policy in case they want to comment on that. Okay, so we're on the same page, but again, I want you guys to know that I don't want it to come wrong, but I do want to be firm on, for me getting a better idea of whether or not the police department is going to have a racial profiling policy. And in fact, if EPD thinks this is it, then it really needs a lot of work in terms of actually framing that.
So I'm gathering that you don't feel that there's a hard kernel that you see right now that no matter what, that's going to be there in terms of racial profile.
Yeah, one of the statements that I've seen in other policies, and I am going to be sending copies of the policy that I found, some in Texas and some other places, specifically, and to set the tone of the policy, in fact says, Police Department of X, B, and Z strictly prohibits racial profiling. So then, right from the beginning, regardless of the title, then it says, okay, well, this is, in fact, addressing some. Right now, as it stands, it doesn't have specific statement. Last time I mentioned it, I didn't make a motion. So perhaps the department may be thinking,
It's covered.
It's covered, but I don't necessarily see that there.
Personally, I appreciate you bringing this up now, because it's a concern to me, not only that if we keep piling stuff on, it takes longer to implement and it's more complicated. And one good thing that we got from the police auditor at the Human Rights Commission last night was something I hadn't heard mentioned, is the actual time it takes to capture this data in a stop on, say, a smartphone. If it takes 5 minutes, what is the total loss over a year's implementation plus the number of officers for the average of 26,000 stops in Eugene per year was the figure he gave.
Wow.
Times, say, 5 minutes adds up to how much time not spent stopping crime. And the auditor suggested it was possibly a few officers' worth. It was the equivalent of taking them out of patrol to do this. So the more we add for them to check off, the longer that time is before they put themselves back in service and go do something else. So I think it's important that you bring this up here. It puts me on the alert, both to make sure we don't lose the core of what you're concerned about and what I think started the whole anti-bias conversation in the first place here. And also that we don't drag out the implementation by piling on more things to track and protect. Now, does that make sense?
Makes sense. Joe,
Bill's got a puzzle look.
have anything to comment?
Oh, yeah, I got a couple things to go. First of all, assuming that it is 5 minutes per stop to fill the stuff out, 26,000 stops, so that would be 12 per hour, so you divide that by 26,000 by 12 is 2,000 hours, or roughly 1 man year. That's 40 hours a week for a person. So I think the 5 minutes to fill it out is way high.
I think it is.
I think you're probably looking at 2 minutes, probably worst case. I don't think that they'll be looking at, if you're talking about several check boxes, less than 10, it should be considerably less than 5 minutes. So let's assume that it goes down to 2 minutes, okay? Then
I think I see where you're going.
then we're less than 6 months of one person, okay, half a man year. And so I'm not sure that it's that significant. And since it's a marginal input and they have to do reports anyway, that's an issue. But I sort of sense that there's 3 things going on that I'm kind of looking, well, let's call it 4 things. The whole stops thing, in other words, the data collection, is kind of related to this, but not directly in terms of policy. There does seem to be some consensus that there should not be a bias policy regarding race, or there should not be biased policing based on race. There you go. Okay. However, I don't see it on socioeconomic status. I think in general in the group that there's probably enough votes to keep that out of the policy. So in other words, the response to our little vote that we had last time kind of got shot down pretty badly at the meeting. And that I found to be troubling, because as I'm seeing it right now, listening to people in the community over time, I've heard people complain about policing based on race, and I've heard about policing based on socioeconomic status. Now, age too, but I think, I haven't heard it as much.
Age filtered through either race or socioeconomic status.
I think it's those 2 that are the thing, and age is secondary. There may be some component of it over at the university, but
I interrupted your point. Sorry.
Yeah, but that's maybe it's happening. I don't see it, or at least none of the feedback I've gotten indicates that it's there in a major way. But I do get considerable feedback indicating that there are lots of sort of harassment stops that go on regarding socioeconomic status. In other words, people are sort of stopped, kept there for a while, and then let go. And the other flip side is with kids, usually there's a good chance if they're homeless and they're a kid, they're probably going to have some marijuana on them, which means that, the stop goes on, and there's a lot of them who've complained that they stopped me and then they eventually said, I want to search you, and you have your choice. I can search you here, you can consent to a search here, or I'll take you into the station and we'll search you there. Take your pick. And I think that kind of starts to cross the line. Is there probable cause to get the kid for marijuana? But at the same time, is the marijuana stop the result of socioeconomic status? So That seems to be a pattern. It's been complained about hugely within the homeless community and the people who are sort of advocating, for that group. So I kind of see that. So there's this whole thing of detention. And I was kind of concerned. It seemed like, all of a sudden there was this consensus in the room prior to the meeting about revising the language that we changed the prior meeting. So I'm kind of wondering how much organizing went on around that one outside of the public view. And that was, that was well orchestrated and clearly indicates that we have an issue around that stuff. So that's my assessment of the situation at this point. So I'll let the floor go at that.
I just wanted to point out, if everyone didn't see my email, I may get called away from this earlier rather than later. So I thought maybe if we get to a good stopping point in this discussion, we might line out like 2 or 3 goals that actually require a quorum and votes and so on, to make sure we get to those rather than discussions that, frankly, I agree are important. But if we're charged with getting these 2 things done.
Yes, and I think that's important to do. Now, let me tell you why I wanted us to have the discussion now. Because we had quite a bit of feedback at the last meeting of this committee from folks that they were wanting to include certain things, from access to inclusion of things, and also clarity. And then I began to think about it. Wait a minute. Which policy is this in fact? Is it just a general bias, watered down thing? Then okay, let's present that to the panel and to the community. But I want to know exactly, clearly, is this or is this not a racial profiling policy? So that I can, obviously, we have to do that because we individually have to answer those questions. So that's why I wanted to make sure, because all of you 3 are going to be out in the community talking about, hey, by the way, don't miss out on this panel. By the way, don't forget, we have this community forum or public forum on such and such date. Oh yeah, what's it about?
Yes.
Well, what is it about? Where did you go? So I don't want to go one way and all 3 and the rest of the commission one different way. That would not look good in general. But I also understand that it also kind of was designed from the beginning to be general. But I don't want to say to the community, oh, well, yeah, we did have a racial profiling policy, and it's right here somewhere. That would probably not be okay. I will reserve my comments that reflect what Joe said about the vote. Those were some of the feedback I received personally, saying, well, now I think we begin to trust the police commission again based on the last motion. But now at this meeting, it kind of really reversed. Why? Because I've been talking about my kids that are stopped based on this new amendment. It's not going to get recorded. So we're right back to 0. Okay, so you haven't had a chance to talk. I want to make sure that we do before getting to the...
I'm just going to be really brief. I guess I don't agree with a lot of that's been said here. I mean, the first line of this policy states, unequivocally that bias-based policing by the Eugene Police Department will not be tolerated. So if this doesn't say that this is a bias-based policing policy, I don't know what does. And I think the social economic, we talk about economic status in that we're talking about our definition, cultural groups, all of those same things can fit into that. So I think that we're just splitting hairs in a lot of this conversation. But I do think this policy is on the right track, and I think it needs to just be, I think it's going down, especially as the initial policy, but it does state in there that that this is not going to be tolerated, and that's what we want. So that's all.
It's worth remembering that all the people working on this policy in their various different areas, some communicating better than others, the public, the police officers, the media, and so on, will all see this process differently. And to some of them, just the foot in the door of a policy like this looks like the whole elephant got into the room. And to others of us, we know it's just the foot. This is just the opening wedge, the start. The door's open, you got something wedged in there that keeps it from getting shut again. is it crucial to make sure the whole elephant gets in on the first pass? Or can we get the people in the room to sort of get used to that big gray foot for a while and think maybe that's not so bad. Maybe we can let more of that in. So it seems to me like the department, largely of its own accord, rather than waiting for a judge to tell them, is moving forward on something that opens a door that was closed. It certainly was perceived as closed. And regardless of what we do, people are either going to accuse us of not doing enough or doing too much. So I think it's worth remembering that the perception of this will always be on a spectrum. Our opinions on this will always be in the spectrum. The important thing is that the door doesn't get closed again. Does that make sense?
It does, and thank you, Bill, for your perspective as well, one that I appreciate. Again, if I've been involved with the Police Commission for 5 years or more, and I've been a part of every single subcommittee. And in fact, I actually have proven wrong some people that thought I wouldn't be able to participate at that level. Not only did I do that, but I also became the chair of the Police Commission. In that time, I know that people have been looking at when do we finally get this. And I know there's some out there want to see things clear, and no general. From the police perspective, of course, you want to have much leverage. And I appreciate that too. I've been to rare loans. I know many officers who happen to be a very, very good police officers. So yes, I'm reminded that finally we're going to be getting at least an inch or two there. I see the potential, and I saw the potential at the meeting before that. And then I went also home very disappointed. Not so much of the result, but the process. And I'm thinking, well, maybe I really am going in a different direction. Maybe the bodies like this are not really ready. In the end, once we have a very last meeting of this committee, I am going to ask us to come up and on your own. I'm not going to ask you to bring recommendations or suggestions or your thoughts and put it on the table for us to vote. I'm not going to do that. But it seems to me that we ought to make some recommendations based on what we hear from the public. It seems to me that the 4 points that you were going to be talking about, Joe, do we include socioeconomic status? Can that be a separate policy if it's not reflected here? I just mentioned racial profiling that I don't see it clearly stated, and I can go on and on and on. I think the police commission, whether or not they take any action on it or not, they can benefit from at least
hearing it.
Yes, and begin at least a conversation. But as long as, in my perspective, as a commissioner only, as long as I see some movement, I think we will begin to see that there is that. It is that I haven't seen any movement. I've seen double door shut. And that's what really creates the distrust. Let's go ahead and get the forum, the finalize forum. I'm so sorry. I do not see approving the notes or the.
It's in number
minutes.
1.
Why don't we do that? Are you
Number-
ready to approve the notes, the minutes?
Is it not in number 1?
It's under number 1.
I didn't see anything that was glaring.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm sure my comments were much more brilliant than you put in here, but I move to approve this.
Second.
I always like that in my mind.
Moved in second. Any discussion on the motion? I see none. All those in favor of approving the notes or minutes, say aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Okay, so finalizing the panel. So the way we left it was that we, thank you, Carter, for helping us out on this. We were doing some fancy math, not really that fancy, but in a way for us to kind of determine which person will come up to the top. Again, I see, and I give equal value to every single person on this. I see a person behind these names and the work that they've been doing in the community and beyond. So we determined that those folks with the highest number were the ones that we're going to be contacting first to say, would you be the panelist, right? So we agreed to then give specific names to some of you and have you contact them to say, we have selected you to be the panelist. Are you still available? And we also have second person and third person. So far, so good?
Yes.
So I chose to talk to Dr. Hernandez, and he said yes, so he is pretty much confirmed. So I had asked Edward to contact Mr. Nube.
He is confirmed.
He's confirmed also, great. And then somebody was going to contact
I've had an email stream going with Raquel Hecht, and hasn't quite gotten her confirmed yet.
Okay.
So we're still kind of in limbo, but I think she's going to go.
Okay.
Pretty
So,
much the same for Ms. Urbina as well.
Mr. Vin, okay. So here we are. We have how many days until March the 13th?
22.
Okay. So we at some point need to have a deadline to get a firm yes or no from this person. And I will ask you to have a kind of a short point of return at this point. Say, can you get back to me by COB to pick so that we can then move on to the next person.
We have one other category that probably should be added. There was concern at the police commission meeting, and it was brought up to have somebody talk about the stops policy, the stops data.
Correct.
And that was, the person who was suggested was Renauer, or however you pronounce that. Okay,
I thought it was the
Chair of the
chair of
committee.
the actual committee.
is that him?
Yes.
No,
Who is the chair?
Renauer is under historical context.
Okay,
He's
so we're
listed
not
there.
dealing with him.
He's
He-
from Portland State. He's the staff to the LECC.
Now, so who is the person who's the chairperson for stops?
Retired Judge Kip Leonardson.
Yeah,
Leonardson.
we decided that we
Is-
will ask him to invite him to.
Has anybody contacted him to
No.
invite him?
No. This is an action that needs to be taken today, and I'll be happy to contact if I have. Would you be able to facilitate that info? So I'll be able to contact the chair of that committee.
Well, because didn't the chief say that he was going to bring the chair to the commission to do a presentation on that?
Kip was scheduled to come to the March meeting and has been bumped because we've got 90 minutes on this. So everything on the agenda has been cleared except this panel. So he was scheduled,
So I
he
just
is
want
not.
to put, because there was a different presentation that chairman was going to get other than just this little panel piece.
Well,
He can come back in May. I mean, he's eager to come.
Well, wait a minute, Joe. So you're absolutely right. So the presentation was not only extended, but more extensive into the work that they've been doing. So the police commission thought there would be another perspective to bring the chair to be doing the same kind of work. So everybody will have the same time. Who knows, maybe other commissioners may ask the chair of that committee more questions, or maybe the public. But I also will probably expect that committee will still do a presentation in the future. That's already scheduled,
so are we going to add a seventh? We have 6 categories. Are we going to add a 7th category? Is the stops person?
yes.
Okay. Are we? Let's get consensus. Are we agreed that we'll bring a 7th person in for the panel?
Well, that was the guidance from the police commission.
That was the guidance.
Right.
So now let's just confirm that.
So moved.
So if you guys want to go ahead and make it formal, make a motion.
Just did.
Okay. Discussion? Those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay.
Okay.
And if okay with you, I'll go ahead and contact.
Perfect.
And so, all right, the other person was, we have Mr. Nubek confirmed, Dr. Hernandez confirmed. Ms. Urbina is,
Still working on that.
don't know yet.
Yep.
And,
Mr. Gissner?
wait, there's another person, Joe, you have,
Gissner's in the, if Hernandez is there, Gissner's off the list.
We need Gissner, and I will speak to that if you like.
Well, and he could also fall into the department piece too, because
Yes.
I haven't been able to get a hold of the former chief of Corvallis there yet.
okay?
If I may, just in a nutshell, having listened to 40 minutes from our police auditor on the subject of the bias policy and a number of other subjects in front of the Human Rights Commission last night, I came away with the very firm realization that there are different groups and people working on both stops policy and bias data collection policy who each have a piece of the picture and are not very aware of what the other groups are actually doing. And I think that one thing that this panel sort of needs to do for everybody involved, and this would be something that would be almost a gift from the police commission to the other participants, is to get everybody in the room at the same time for a period of time and let those realities be checked against each other, because I don't think that's happening as well as it might.
Okay, so here's what we need to do.
And Gissner's a vital part of that.
And I hear that. Thank you. Your perspective and all of us' perspective is well respected. Let's not feel like we have to sell it. It's a very good perspective, so please. Now, what
I was
think we
prepared to
need
lie on
do,
the table and turn
first
blue.
of all, because we determined and we move people into certain categories, and if I graded those folks in those categories, then what we probably need to do is move a person to a different category, and not to say that is the best person. Otherwise, I do not want to explain to people, wait a minute.
You had more
have Mr.
points, but we
Hernandez,
threw you
right,
out.
I have
Yes.
Mr. Hernandez, and
Yeah.
that was next, Mr. Villanueva. Why did you pick? I don't want to get into those conversations. So the way systematically to do it is one of you to move Mr. Gissner, if you want to a different area.
I would like to move Mr. Gissner, and I would like to move Mr. Gissner, but I'm open to suggestions about where we put him here.
Let's add a eighth category
Oh,
and
Lord.
then possibly or possibly remove one of either the officer or the department.
We have a motion right now to move in. We'll get back into that category.
I
I'm
don't see that as a
hesitant to
threat.
create another category, but I think having him represent, how shall I put this? The people in charge of part of this process once the policy is in place. In other words, that office has a pivotal role in how the stops policy plays out in the field, in what is done with the bias collection data. It's almost its own category in one regard.
So now I get your point where you're coming from, Joe. Sorry.
Yeah.
So what I'm hearing though is policy impact. Is
Yes,
that it? 'Cause-
amongst other things,
because
right?
in some cases, the police auditor is going to make sure that the policy was followed, right? So you still need, we can then reverse and take care of what you're trying to accomplish first, create a new category,
Right.
before we move a person into that possibly category. Now the question is, what does that category look like? Is that gets closer to what you're trying to do?
Well, I'm just thinking if we add an eighth category, then we say, yeah, we want to have Mark Gissner here, and then as a separate item, we subtract away one of the other categories.
Okay.
Okay?
I'm okay.
Is that an acceptable, friendly
It
amendment to your?
absolutely is. I move whatever he said.
So your motion was to, can you withdraw your motion right now?
I'm going to do that. It's
Thank you.
cleaner.
And so you're welcome to make the motion to create an
Yeah, we'll create an eighth category, and then we'll deal with the others later.
And what's
So
the
motion to
category?
create.
Do you know the name of the category?
I don't know. called
Policy implementation?
Implications, I was going to use.
Implications.
PI.
Okay.
Policy. Sure.
And seconded by?
I'll second that.
Okay, moved and second. Bill, do you have any comments? I don't mean to put you on the spot, I just want to
No.
make sure. Okay, let's vote on that. All those in favor of the motion, say aye.
And then we'll put Mark in that one.
Okay, so I will entertain a motion to do so.
So move.
Seconded.
Okay, discussion on the motion to move Mr. Gissner into that newly created category. I hear none. Those in favor say aye.
Aye.
So, okay, now, because he's the only one in the category, I
Yes.
am just going to assume that we're going to invite Mr. Gissner to be a part of this panel.
Sounds good to me.
Does anyone want to volunteer to invite him?
I will do that. I've already talked to him.
Okay, Bill, thank you so much. Okay, so getting rid of that. Now, the next item is to in fact, delete one of the categories.
I'd move to delete the officer one at this point.
Second? Motion, discussion on the motion?
Well, I'm still trying to get, I've been having an email stream with the union group, with the officer that's working with the stops group to try to figure out if they want to get involved. And I hate to take that category off right now because I think we need to make sure we're offered them a spot to come in and talk if they want to do it. I don't think they will, but I want to make sure that they're offered a spot to do that.
Edward?
I agree with Bill in spades. I think it would be everything from unwise to rude not to give the officers an opportunity to weigh in on this. But I've thought as we created these categories that officer / departmental rep doesn't necessarily have to be two different people. It would be great if we could get somebody down here from Corvallis or whatever, but have we made any progress on that?
No.
Okay, with that.
How about to revise the motion that we merge these two categories?
I like that better.
She's amending, offering
Yeah,
amendment to the
that's-
motion, you accept
And
it?
the second.
Okay,
So we're going to merge those two categories.
merging the categories. All those in favor of merging those categories, say aye.
Aye.
Did we name it?
Thank you, guys.
So either command staff or an officer goes in that slot.
Departmental.
No, I would like this committee to understand not only the complexity, but to some extent the hesitation for command staff or even officers to even want to even respond, let alone participate. And I see that over and over. In fact, I remember some work that we were doing as a result of the police commission. There's quite a bit of not push, but request that the union representatives be part of it. And I've heard separately that they wanted to, but then in the end they didn't. So there's a whole lot of things that I don't know about. But it doesn't mean that they're not interested. Believe me, they are very interested in all this. But so keeping that open, absolutely. Again, one of the conversations we had before is that we may not necessarily want to go after local, but in fact, go outside. And I think that's also going to benefit and kind of keep the spotlight away from local officers. So keep that in mind as you're trying to recruit. The way I see it is every single category is been filled except for this new merge. Is that about right?
Yes, as near as I can tell. If I might suggest, we're looking at somebody from a department who can give the commission good examples of how this works. But let's remember that it might also be instructive to have someone from a department who's been forced to go through this and can speak to what drove that, what the resistance is, how goddamn lucky Eugene is not to be going through that way because it makes it all take so much longer. It's a thought. You know, the advice need not be affirmative as much as it is cautionary.
So
Makes sense?
when we
It's a Portland.
when we identify a person or department or entity that will fulfill this department representative or such, we have to probably open it, say, welcome to talk about the positives and the negatives or the pros and cons of it. So I think in any discussions we have to be willing and open to hear a lot of sides as much as possible. And then that's the idea. In fact, the whole premise of this is to give as much information and perspectives to the commission. They can make a decision. Whether I have my own opinion or not, that's separate. In fact, I know that I will be learning quite a bit once we have this panel. So absolutely agree with you. Okay, so the only one that we're leaving open is that one combined category. So I believe that we have that. My only concern at this time is with Ms. Urbina, that we don't know whether she's for sure or
And
not.
who was our
Also,
next choice in that
Rafael
was?
Harris or Martinez
Harris.
were the next two.
I see they're tied, yes.
So
know.
I agree that I will be calling Mr. Harris and Martinez.
At this point, why should we do this? If Urbina takes the spot, then we're essentially done. We can plug them in through, another mechanism, but I don't know that we need to make
Let me
it.
tell you why we need to do this. So we need to talk about deadline for them to respond. If they do not respond, we have nobody.
Yeah.
And unless we have a backup plan, then
Yeah,
we're
we
going to
should.
have
Okay.
one very, very important category with that.
That's fine.
Someone in the wings.
So at this point, probably, do we say what? Have them respond by Friday?
It's
Okay, so it'll be Friday. Is that enough time for all of you? So
Okay.
that Ms. Attorney Hecht and Mr. Urbina are the two
yeah.
that we just need to, and I know Raquel probably would do it, but they probably is just us talking. They have to actually tell us, yes, I will be there.
Yes.
Yep.
Done. So Friday, and if Friday doesn't respond, then I probably will need you to then send
Contact you,
notice.
yes.
do not expect a conversation back and forth.
No.
Probably, maybe better to send it to Carter and carbon copy me. Okay. So again, we're not intending to have a conversation. The idea would be yes, they say yes, or no, they say no, so that then we can then go back to plan two, which is who is the next person.
Well, Judge Allen, and then Lauren Regan has responded to me. I've got an email stream going back and forth with her. You know, she's asking more, I give her more, you know, going back and forth a couple rounds.
So at this point, we need to go to the next person on this category, the attorney, which will be that Judge Allen.
Okay,
right?
so, yeah, so that will
Bill,
be,
were you the one talking?
Yeah, but he's gone.
He's out of town until the end of March.
Yeah.
Mary
so-
Maury is filling in as
Yeah, so that's.
presiding, if you
So
want
that's
her
why we
there.
never could get hold of him.
so I'll make an effort to see if I can close out Raquel Heck.
Okay.
If not, I'll reopen the conversation with Lauren Regan and see who she recommends.
Well,
I don't think she'll want to do it herself, but she can probably.
Well, actually, what we need to do, we need to actually close out exactly who we're inviting.
Right.
So we're not in fact asking for any more names. The name addition, adding more names, that's closed. We're done with that. We either have to say, get a yes from this person, or we have to then open it up and bring more names.
Okay.
So it's too bad that Judge Allen's not around. Ms. Regan will be also good in terms of that perspective.
Assuming she agrees to do it, but I haven't pursued. You know, like I said, I've had a couple of emails with her, but I haven't pursued it because we rated Raquel Heck higher.
Right.
So I'll you know, after this meeting, I will write another email to her, and then I will start, you know, pestering on the phone.
Okay, so here's what we need to do. CLB Friday,
Yeah.
you know, we can get an email back saying, I got her, or no, I didn't get it, I'm gonna move on to talk to Ms. Regan.
Right.
Okay, and same thing with Ms. Urbina.
Now, do we want to see if we can identify a third option for an attorney? Does anyone know a relevant attorney that might fit this bill here?
This will be the time, thank you. And I don't know, in that regard, who might.
Any thoughts, Carter?
No.
The person to reach out to about that on our commission would be Claire Surratt,
Oh, good point.
formerly with the ACLU. Got dozens of attorneys' names in her head, I'm sure.
So then I would then want to get
And then I did talk to the guy who was the head of the ACLU, but he's not an attorney. But I could get a hold of him and see who he recommends, and I could have that information by Friday for folks.
so
He was very helpful.
I appreciate that. My only concern at this point is really with following the lead of a lead of a lead.
Yeah.
And so that would take time for us to then hone it in terms of this category. Although that's probably where we probably need to go. But I just need a consensus on this category. Maybe here I'm not worried because we know if this person doesn't do it, we have plenty of people.
Well, I'm sort of figuring that there's like a 90% chance that Raquel Heck will do it, which makes all of this discussion moot. But on that 10% chance, and she says, no, I'm not willing to do this, then we need a plan B. And so, you know, I'm interested in, do we have a plan B at this point? Does anybody have any suggestions for that?
Or are we going to come to Friday and just be sitting around with nothing?
Because I would go down, I'll do another, after we're done with all this stuff tonight, I'll do another email to her and I'll get on the phone tomorrow. I've been doing emails and it takes a couple of days before I get another response.
You have a cell phone?
I have an office phone, I don't have a cell phone. You got a cell phone, dude. Okay.
And note that this is a public meeting and recorded on the website before you share private information.
I was just going to say, still, if I write it down, that becomes public record.
This is a public record, anything we have there
So,
later.
Okay, good enough. Okay,
but we still have that pending answer to the question. If Ms. Raquel does respond by Friday COB, that will you guys be okay in that kind of flexibility for Joe to continue that stream? But we still need to close it at some point to say, well,
That's that.
we either found somebody or we didn't, and that's going to be the reality. Carter?
The only thing I would add is that Claire and the commission supported Dave Vidanki as a panelist, and although he's not an attorney, he's very well versed in the legal issues because he's the director of the ACLU of Oregon.
Yes, right.
So he's not on your short list right now, but I think that he could possibly fill the same role as an attorney because of his professional job of
Yes.
being the legal advocate for the ACLU.
And we're
I
not
mean,
asking for legal opinions,
Right.
so.
Just-
You
throwing
commissioners want to move that person to that category, but only as an alternative to us to Plan B, since we're really having a hard time coming up with names. So I will entertain a motion to do that.
So move.
Second.
Discussion on the motion? Those in favor of moving Mr. Vidanki to the attorney section, say aye.
Aye.
Okay,
Thank you.
Plan B.
Carmen, I have an email that apparently came in yesterday that I'm just finding that said I might be out at a different conference on that date. If not, I will be attending. So I'll get back to her and try to find out if she's got any more firm plans since this came in. But it
wonder
sounds
if
like
she
we better
doesn't
have a plan
know-
B.
Do you think she knows that she's being asked to be a panelist?
Oh, yes.
Instead of attending?
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
that's fine.
I mean,
Okay.
she got the same thing everybody else got.
Got it. So let's talk about Plan B for that, in case. So we have a tie between Mr. Harris and Dr. Martinez.
I don't know either of them.
Yeah. Martinez came highly recommended to me. I don't know anything about Mr. Harris.
So Harris has been dealing with a lot of civil rights and has a lot of historical context. He's also a professor and has done diversity trainings and all that. And they both obviously rank the same. So once I get the email back from you on Friday,
Yes.
I can either facilitate the info for both, or I can also help with recruiting. But I don't know which one to go first.
Sure.
That'll be up to your decision.
I don't know that you have to do someone to go first. Just invite both of them, and the first one that accepts gets it.
Okay? You guys okay with that? Okay, so that's the
Plan B
plan.
on that.
All right.
Okay.
So next thing is to finalize the outreach for the community forum. Thank you, Carter, for retitling that community forum. Well, what's supposed to be public forum? It doesn't matter. Community forum is fine. So we are scheduled for that in April the 3rd. And we obviously, because that's not a police commission, we didn't have to ask the commission to move the meeting there. We are.
It's standalone.
So did we, have we secured that place?
No.
Oh, did we secure the 13th yet? Harris Hall for
no.
March 13th?
No.
Okay,
Do we still have time
I've
to do
been-
that today? Can we do that right now, if that's
Sure.
possible?
I've been out of the office, so
It's okay.
That's-
Okay,
I just
so
let you
I'll
know.
just get a consensus to ask staff to help us with securing the room for the 13th and the 4th.
And the
3rd
third.
of April. Okay.
It should be 2 Thursdays, if I remember correctly.
Okay, so let's now talk about what that looks like. So we talked about several different ideas. So I don't want everybody to go at once, but kind of want to get a better picture of what all of you were expecting. There was a lot of great ideas before. I want to start with you. So what you had envisioned. And again, all this, at this point, I don't want us to be discussing all the ideas. Right now, we're just kind of either brainstorming or putting the ideas on the table. And we go back and see which area we can agree upon. So,
I would like to see an article in the Register Guard and the Weekly, okay, which is probably just, the Weekly is getting a hold of Camilla Mortensen. The Register Guard, I don't know. That would be the first thing.
you thinking about informational type of thing?
Yeah, in other words, just at a minimum in the Register Guard, there's, or not the Register Guard, the Weekly, there's usually these 1/3 of a column type things, you know, activist alert things, and we could probably get one of those. And if she's willing to do a larger article, which she may be, although they may have already planned out the next couple issues, but we should be able to get at least, you know, a third of a column kind of box, activist alert thing.
Got it.
So it's just a matter of getting a hold of her. The Register Guard, I would say that the same, and certainly getting it into the calendar in both the weekly and the Register Guard, which should be done reasonably soon. So if we confirm on the Harris Hall that we actually do have those 2 nights, then we ought to get something out to those groups immediately.
How long does it take usually, Carter, to get word back from whomever you talk to?
I have to track down who it is and then send an email off, and they have to get back to me. So I am in a meeting most of the day tomorrow, so it will be, I'm not exactly sure. Should be by Friday by the end of the day.
Okay.
Okay.
So this is leading to the forum. Anything else leading to, or what you envision happening?
Okay, I would say the PSAs are good. We had talked about doing sort of a generalized press release to, whose ever media stuff, and then all of the various groups, Cal, Helios, anybody's got a mailing list. I'm sure Occupy's still mailing stuff out. There's various other groups, the ACLU. If there's other, I just, there's probably a list around somewhere. We've discussed that a couple times. Then beyond that, we certainly could try a poster of some nature. And to print out black and white is 22 cents a piece. And I'm willing to put in, kick in some money to do that. I mean, we can pass the hat for that one. And, just put a few of them up. We don't, not a lot, but, a few various places.
Okay, let me pause here. Carl, do you know if we got any word back on whether or not commissioners are okay putting out money? You talked about the Facebook, but we also talked about these things. Do you know if...
You need to take a motion and do it as a body. So
Okay.
the police commission you should not be asking other people for money without the commission weighing in.
So, you mean the full commission?
You shouldn't be asking other people for money.
Right.
Without the full commission.
Right. We're not gonna be asking money to any people. We're gonna
Right.
be, members
You
are
all-
coming forward on their own.
You all can contribute. You all can contribute.
Okay.
You all shouldn't take money from other people.
Probably not. Or flowers, or...
So,
Yes.
so I think that was already established a while ago, but I really appreciate the clarification. So, in fact, we talked about independence and not being seen as favor and all that. So I'm hearing that us, as committee members, we can in fact say, well, I want to hear some money for A, B, and C. So I'm hearing that we should not do it. So if any of you, like Joe, you're saying you're willing to put money for the poster, and I've heard, Edward, that you were talking about something about Facebook, and I am not asking, I'm just remembering. what
You are
were
remembering
saying.
accurately.
Okay. So I don't think that that's going to be an issue if I can be confirmed. Okay.
The only part that I would ask is, I don't have a budget to spend the money, so if you buy it, then I don't need to see an invoice, and it's not a problem. It becomes a problem if I'm recouping revenue for something that I don't have the expenses for. So as long as it's not on the city books, we're good.
Okay. So
Pick
can I
what
get
you
a-
want to do and pay for it,
That's right, have at it.
and then that's it.
Can I get a quick consensus that that is going to be permitted to individual? So the purpose of specific item that we, the only thing that will caution for us is to, obviously, we're going to be in support. The message itself has to be consistent across the board, so that doesn't deviate, and the message is continuously across the board. Okay?
For me, simply enough, what I would put up on social media is if we have a press release, I'll run the press release. If we have one paragraph that says this is where it is and when it is and why it is, I'll just run that, period. It doesn't need any other embellishment or dilution.
Okay. So you were at the poster that 22 cents before I interrupted you, Joe. You have anything else?
Well, I mean, he's got his suggestion Facebook. I think that's pretty much exhausts what we can do in the short run. The finishing up on the poster, I don't think we need more than 50 of them. So I'd lay out 11 by 17, post a few at the university, various places around the city, at the library and some other places, and do that. And I don't mind chipping in $10. I mean, if all four of us chipped in $10, that would cover your $30 and my $10 for 50 posters. So
I am volunteering to chip in $10, but that'd be nice.
I'll do that.
okay, we got $40. Woohoo! Life is good.
Not one tax dollar spent, folks.
Thank you, Joe. And Edward, do you have anything else to add, or do you have your own list in terms of how to do the outreach?
Sorry, I was distracted by another commissioner. Can you repeat the question?
Do you have anything else to add to the list on the actual outreach? The strategies or...
I'm trying to think of, besides just blasting our own email lists with notices of this. Carter, what else can the city put up on its website, for instance?
We would put in whatever media release we have could get on. We can get it on the calendar, the police commission calendar for sure. Possibly on the greater city calendar, so it's on more of the front page, although that's very premium space.
Yes,
and
sure.
I don't get to vote.
Fighting is fierce about that, I get it.
So we can post it as prominently as will be allowed on the city's website.
One thing, thank you. There's one thing I want to suggest about our use of social media in this. There's two things we can do with it. One is to tell people that there's a panel discussion, they can come, to Harris Hall and watch that happen with the police commission, possibly get to writing questions. The other is this forum that we're talking about. But there's no reason not to encourage people to give their input via social media, and we will compile that into the commission. So that opens up the whole public forum process to people who hold two jobs, who don't have transportation after a certain time, who don't have childcare, who are physically disabled, prevented from getting to the thing. And I think that's important because those folks often get left out of the public dialogue when it's just the folks who can spare the time to sit through 90 minutes of someone else having their 3 minutes. So if we have a way, obviously we can put the policy out to the public via social media and just invite comment, but if we want to do something more complex than that, a poll of a couple of questions or something like that, we can do that. Or we can just let it evolve organically from the conversation people have on social media, gather it all together and say, there's public comment. Just thoughts.
All right, we just gathering your thoughts, not discussion.
I'm not moving anything. I'm not sure anything needs to be moved on that at this point.
Bill, what are your thoughts?
Are we just focused on the prior to or the actual meeting?
Well, because of the level of the content of how it's shaped, we're going to focus into leading into, and then I'll come back to kind of discuss about what will happen during that. So.
I don't really have further comments. I think you guys covered most of the avenues that we need to do.
Okay.
Make sure we get it out there.
For me, most of the stuff that I wanted to see is already covered as well. I would like to tap into the resources. I think it's appropriate for us to ask the city's communication director or officer, and also the police department communication officer, Melinda and
Jenna, your color.
If they would, once we have the press release and all this info, have them distribute to their contacts. I think that's going to be a big help. So that really are my two additions. So before we move on to what would you envision during the actual forum, let's go back to the list. I think I do not see anything, from my perspective, anything that you, Joe, mentioned that it couldn't happen or is out of the mission or the goal of this. I think we can, just about everything that you put on the list, it can be. You guys feel any different? And Edward, you were talking about of course, the email list and the police commission website and you're asking for info. The only question I had was in terms of social media feedback. I really like the idea in terms of asking folks for their feedback. I think it'll work if we are able to get it in just the way we get it raw, send it.
Yes.
Two things with that. Sometimes people are really, well, be out there and just tell you what's in their mind. Sometimes people will actually put it in a format that might be palatable or understandable by the police commission. I would have the tendency to go with the first one, the way we get it, here we go, but with the understanding that they're not gonna expect us to respond to them, and that the police commission is not gonna expect us to categorize it and all that. Here's what we got, you read it on your own, take your time, but also knowing that not every commissioner will in fact take the time to do so. So we probably will say, we've done our job, whether somebody takes the time, including us, to do so, then we're done with our actual job. That will be up to them. So, because sometimes even though these things are great ideas, sometimes it becomes frustrating for the person that proposing or the people that are presenting the feedback because of the unspoken expectations.
Yes.
And I'd rather speak about it now because I think it's a really good idea. And then the other thing was actually just a question about the poll. It's just a suggestion, but I like the idea of that, and I don't know how complicated that can be, or if it is just simple enough.
Simpler is better.
Okay.
Facebook unfortunately did away with a really outstanding free polling feature a few months ago that would have made this all very, very easy in favor of pushing you to a third-party website that just cuts out about 3/4 of the people because they won't take that step. So that's unfortunate.
All right.
But to simply ask people, one or two questions about it, and the sites that I would put this up on are all sites that have ground rules about civil comments. So, keep it constructive. There's no point saying you can't trust the police to do anything, so I don't why you're bothering. It's like, that's not this site. That's maybe some newspaper's comment section, but not the kinds of things that we ask people to put up on those pages.
I think it'll be it's not scientific by all means.
No.
but I
It's
think
just
it gives,
people's thoughts on the matter.
It gives at least a pulse of the community that we can at least say, well, in this particular way in which we request the feedback, this is what we've heard.
And it's worth remembering that Facebook, in particular, puts stuff onto mobile devices better than almost any other platform, and that there are segments of any city's population now who might be doing all of their internet access via their smartphone. Younger people, different ethnic groups and so on. They've never got a landline, never got a PC. So we don't have anything on a mobile device to tell them about this event or to give them a way to communicate. They just miss that. They're not reading the Register Guard. They're not watching evening news. So I think it's important that we at least tell them about the event that way.
So another thing that people are using quite a bit, including me, is Twitter. And I know the police has a Twitter account,
Yes,
right?
they do.
Police department has a
Police
Twitter.
department. So that's another source to tap into. Again, I'm just looking at what's there already that we can. I know somebody was telling me that they don't even get to be used quite often, and part of it is if people know it's available or how to use it. So that's good. So, are you ready to move on to what you envision?
It's like action item time.
Okay. So let's figure out exactly, and I don't know if we want to prioritize on the list of things, but let's kind of narrow down to things. And I think some of the things that will probably come up to the top would be obviously either an article leading to and maybe the PSA. That will be two things that can come up.
The PSAs we should be able to deal with tonight. So I don't know if anybody wrote their text thing or whatever, but we'll deal with that. But that, once we finish this, we wander into the other room and we do them. Okay, so and then I'll have to do a little bit of finish up, and then the issue would be distribution. I mean, here it's easy. I just program them in and we're done for the next couple of weeks. But getting into the other stations, the radio stations and the TV stations, is going to take some legwork. Now, I can do some of that, but it would be nice to get to that. But let's move that one off to after we get that taken care of. So in the calendar, we need to put it in the weekly, and that'll have to be done in the next week to make their deadlines for the 13th. So I'd be happy to put the thing in the weekly. If someone else wants to take the Register Guard and put the announcement in the Register Guard.
I'll do that.
Okay, so the calendar at EW is Joe, and you'll get it in the Register Guard for their Friday calendar section.
Might be worth dropping a call on Ed Russo and see if he wants to interview somebody about this.
So the calendar's separate from an article.
Yep, I get that.
Okay, so at the weekly, I'd be happy to, I've talked to Camilla before, unless somebody else wants to, I'd be happy to give her a call.
I'm okay, you call me.
Okay, so I'm gonna call the weekly is Camilla. So
Washington.
Yeah. So somebody else, I guess Ed Russo, somebody else want to talk to Ed Russo?
Don't know.
I can.
You can. Okay, so Ed's going to take Ed Russo. Okay. Now, so then we're down to the PSAs, press releases. We need to put together a press release. So how do we want to manufacture that?
So the person that has a lot more experience in the PSA will be you, and I don't want to put a lot of stuff on you, but I think it'll be good to get some guidance on the PSA. Yeah, I know that's very simple,
No, I'm not talking about PSA. We're talking about a press release as opposed to PSA.
but like,
PSA is different. We're going to do that. We'll do that tonight.
I could do the press release.
Okay.
I think it'd be probably more appropriate for me to do it.
And is it, okay, now, we do have the issue of reviewing, for the press release. If you want to write it, it's usually good to pass it by a couple of people to, get comments.
How do we do it safely, Carter, without having a quorum?
We're just fact checking the press release.
Yeah, you can, if you all refrain from dialogue to each other and communicate with me, you're fine.
Okay. So you'll write a press release, she'll send it out, and we'll comment on it. Okay?
And then once that's done, that's something we can all email to our own lists. We can give to Melinda and to different people in the city to get out. And I can commit to reposting it on, let's say, a minimum of 100 local organizational or media Facebook pages.
So keep it short.
Yeah, keep it short.
And, time and place.
Yep.
That kind of stuff. Okay, good. But again, we'll have to move on that because we've only got 22 days and we're running out of time. The poster, I can lay out a poster. In fact, we could do that tonight after the meeting if we want to do that. I have a copy of the Illustrator here. And so if we want to do it as a group, we can do it, or I can lay it out. I'm just thinking time and place, just this little thing about the police department's doing this proactively, and the names of the people on the panel, and a short description.
Even though we don't have everyone.
Well, by Friday, we're going to have it, so I won't print them until that's finished.
Okay.
But that's what I would have in
start.
mind for a poster.
I'm okay with that.
I won't be able to stay. I have a daughter to pick up before 6, so.
So you guys can have all the fun.
Well, we got to get your 2 PSAs out before you guys
We will
vanish.
get going.
So it's okay with the group if I just, pull a poster together?
Yeah, you show it to us.
Okay, so I'll send it to Carter and she can, okay, we'll do that. More stuff to do. Don't have anything with Facebook. The one last thing would be an email address for people to send comments to. We had
We
talked
have
about
that email
that
address
last.
from the police commission, so that can be shared with people. We can
Okay.
put that on the poster.
Yeah, that's
And also
in the press release.
so we actually have an email address?
Yeah.
Yes, police commission,
Send it out at the last.
I sent it out a week ago. Let me find it.
System battery died, so I can't look it up. So I'm dead. My little guy's dead.
Is
So
there
it's a
an
paperweight.
address? Do we also have an address to send, snail mail, regular mail
Be me.
to Carter? Okay.
I mean, you can send it to the police commission at 300 Country Club, and it'll get to me.
Okay. to the police commission. And what's the zip there?
401.
Yeah.
Okay, so let me take it back, Joe. So talk about the other one, which is the article,
Yeah.
the actual article into the regular, into the weekly. So that obviously is gonna, I need more clarification. So we talked about, Edward, you'll be contacting Ed Russo.
Yeah. Normally, the way that works is you give them a press release, they write an article. If you give them an article, it's the smaller presses that will be happy for that and run untouched, and larger papers are going to want to write an article based on what
Right,
you give them.
because what I'm hearing though is two separate things. One is that it is the article or the interest, is activated or initiated by the reporter versus us writing something like an op-ed piece or a small something. Okay, so this is the second one that I'm not clear. So the first one, you send press releases.
Straightforward, yes.
If you send enough info, they probably will even write a small article. So that's good. And you have no control of that. The second one is whether or not what I've heard was that this body, in fact, writes an article. And I do not know whether or not we, in fact, can do that without the support of the police commission. You might be getting into, do we speak for the police commission and all that. And so it's not a bad idea. I'm not saying that at all. I'm just saying, where is those boundaries in which one of us, or the four of us, writing something?
Well, I know the members of the Human Rights Commission, submit op-ed pieces to the Register Guard, but it's very clear they're not speaking for the commission.
Thank you. And that's my next point. So let's agree on something. So we are not able to speak on behalf of the police commission. We, in fact, are able to announce an event which we, in fact, are giving the kind of permission. We're going to be sending press releases, posters, and so on and so forth. So we're safe. But now I think we are agreeing that we're not able to actually do an article which say we represent the police commission. My next point is exactly what you said. As individual commissioners, you, in fact, have the freedom to write an op-ed piece or a letter to the editor, or whatever that might be, clearly state that you're not representing this commission. And then I've seen it, and I'm not giving you suggestions. I've seen it done in the body, or I've seen it done in your little biography. I've done it both. So if that's what really was the intent, I will say go for it. And if everybody doesn't have to do it. In fact, anybody from the police commission can do it as well. So if that was intent, again, I wanted to separate and say absolutely, as long as it's clear that we're speaking as individuals. And I encourage you to do that if that's what you want to do. Bill, anything?
No, I mean, I certain things I can't go public with because of my position, so we'll see.
Yes. And that's why I never mentioned my employer. Okay, so I think we're good on the next.
We do have one more item on articles.
That's okay.
Okay. And one of the things that we can do is we can structure an article as opposed to writing one. In other words, let's say that you want to get them to write an article. Well, what you do is you essentially give the reporter an outline for it. Talk to this person, get this information, do this, do this, and you structure the article for them. Now that we can do, because we would not be writing the article, but we would be providing the information to lead someone to write the article.
So can that be done within the press release?
I think we can do it within the press release, but if someone wants to write a more detailed article than would appear, as a result of a short press release, in other words, we can point them to people with whom they can get the rest of the story that they can go.
So you're thinking about maybe contacting the panelists?
Well, giving them the panelists, suggesting that they can contact them, giving them, say, people out of your organization and say, okay, you can contact these people. These are people who have some experience with this thing. They'd be the people you'd want to contact in order to construct this article. So in other words, we can do the legwork to construct the article for them and provide that. which increases the probability that the article will get written. So I think that there's some benefit to doing that, and it doesn't put us, we are not speaking for the commission, we are simply leading a reporter. The issue is this big enough? And I think it probably is for the community that either the Register Guard or the Weekly might pick up on something like that.
If I may, just having worked on both sides of journalism and this sort of stuff, when you write a press release that is more than the lead paragraph, you are in essence writing the article you hope the reporter will write. And if you are very lucky and you did a good job, they'll look at that, check a few of your facts, change the wording around to sort of suit them a little bit more, and it will look a great deal like what you've given them, and it was a good press release because it covered the points their readers are going to want to know. If you write it properly, you'll put all the important stuff in the first paragraph, and then it gets increasingly less important so that when the page editor starts chopping stuff out of it, it's not something important point, get it. But I also know reporters that take very, very poorly to being led in a story or pointed in a different direction. So my advice would be that we write a short press release that is the lead paragraph, the who, what, why, where, when. That we add a few more paragraphs of just the facts. Here's a paragraph of the background of why we're having this forum and what the progress is. And just that, 2 or 3 more paragraphs of facts, and let them ask us questions. Certainly give them the contact information or the names to follow. But if we've written a good, short, to-the-point press release, one of two things will happen. The smaller presses will simply print that, and the others will call us and ask a few more questions. Does that make sense?
I think we're on the same page.
Okay. It's same thing, different ways. Okay.
Bill, do you have anything to comment on that?
We just have to be very careful that we are not viewed by the reporter as speaking on behalf of the commission.
Yep.
And that, I really got to say that we have to be very careful that doesn't, even though you think you're not, you think you're just giving them information and facts, but if they say, this is coming from you,
I got to say, I've watched
so we
the
have to be
Register
very
Guard.
careful, yes, because you think you're just leading them down a path, and then they're saying,
I've watched the Register
Edward said
Guard
this as a police commissioner, this is what's happening at this meeting, and then
attribute to a whole neighborhood the comments of an individual on the board of a neighborhood association that never polled the neighborhood. So, it's, as you say, it's easy to do.
When I craft the press release, I'm going to be focusing on 4 things: time, place, when, importance, and why. So those elements are going to be included on the press release. And if that doesn't capture more, then you're going to send comments back. So we're going to keep it short in terms of what the press release is. Within that, of course, there will be a contact person, normally the chair of the committee or the chair of the police commission. But I already have asked all of you if you will be willing to help with that. So usually, if I'm contacted by somebody, I'll talk to them, or I'll say, yes, I would like you to get another perspective. And it's already asked you publicly to do so. It's already part of the record. So I'm not going to worry about, if I say to some sort of report, that's okay, please contact Joe and contact Ed and contact that. So that's been already established. But again, the information has to be repeated similarly in your own style.
Yes.
Okay?
One other thing I would add to the press release is a list of the speakers for the panel.
Oh, sure.
And, essentially the categories they're going to talk about, and then, the fact that it's open questions after that.
So then we don't get
And this is part of an ongoing process, and that there's not a deadline by which people must comment, and after that, forever hold your peace. I think that's important for people to know.
Great. So I was wanting us to check our time real quick and see. It's 5:17. So we were wanting to get, for those who are departing.
For the two of you guys, if
PSA.
we can get you in front of a camera saying, hi, my name's Joe, and I'm on the police commission, and we're going to have this event. We just need a little bit of text for that, and then we're good to go. We can record it.
Okay. So you guys okay to stick around to do that real quick?
Very few more moments.
Let's talk about the meeting schedule. So the next meeting. So do you want to keep on going with the momentum and do it next week or 2 weeks?
You cannot
When are
meet-
you there?
You can't meet next week, because today was the deadline.
Noticing.
Wednesday is the
Yeah.
deadline.
Well, we got covered the first part, which is the panel.
Yeah.
So, but we're going to be talking about the community forum.
Yes.
So you can meet next week if you want.
Well, except we can't notice it.
I can't get the notice in. The notice
What
was
about
due
2
today.
weeks?
Yep.
Are you available Tuesday from Tuesday?
That'd
A
be
week
the
from Tuesday?
4th of March.
Let's see.
Have to be at 5 for me on that day,
I could do that.
That will be on the 11th?
on the 4th.
4th, huh?
4th of March would be 2 weeks from
I'll
today.
be okay with that, 5 o'clock.
Okay, so that's another Wednesday meeting,
Tuesday.
Tuesday.
Tuesday meeting, okay?
I will not be available if
You will not be
need
available,
staff.
we need you around. You know when you will be available?
I've got a class from 5:30 to 7 on Tuesday
It's
nights.
5 o'clock, the only time you can meet there?
Yeah, I have a 3:30 to 4:30 already, and then I have a 1:30 to
How about-
2:30.
How about Monday? That gets us within the noticing thing.
Monday the 3rd?
Repeat the,
Carter, are you available on Monday the 3rd? Bill and,
Yes.
What time?
well, I know I can get away from the office around after 2:30, maybe 3. So 3:34 is better for me. Bill?
I have, my daughter has a soccer game, I have to get her to at 4,
At 4?
so it'd have to be after 5 on Monday.
Monday evening works for me.
Edward?
I
Carter?
can do that, Carter.
All right, so will you be able to do it right at 5?
Yeah.
Okay. 5 o'clock on the 3rd. And where? Want to go back to the library?
That was fun.
Well, if it's available, yeah, we could do that, but I think at this point, for scheduling, we probably want to do an A, B, and C.
Okay, so option number 1, that's your pleasure. Library?
Sure.
Okay, and I'm talking about the single room.
Yeah. Let's get which room that is.
Or if the downstairs is available, that would be more accessible. So that's option number 1. We need to give options to Carter. Option 2,
Out there with the
Police
rich people, 300 Country Club Road.
that police headquarters. And of course, we also have the atrium. Could you check on those 3 options, Carter?
Yep.
Number 1 being in the library.
If the police station's available, then we don't need to go to a third option.
Okay.
Okay. So at this point, we are meeting on March the 3rd at 5 o'clock, which is the place to be confirmed. Okay, so there's no community dialogue. I don't see a community members. But if
Maybe
there's
circling
anything,
the parking lot still.
Standing outside.
anything else you'd like to say before we get into the PSA, then this is the time to do it.
Carter, anything from you?
I believe that you can adjourn the public meeting and go into doing a PSA because you're not talking about business, which then
Freeze you up.
makes it easier for public. Yeah.
Yes.
I would entertain a motion to adjourn the meeting.
So moved.
Second?
Hold on, second, discussion. Those in favor?
Aye.
All right, Joe, we're all yours.
Okay, let's go
Why don't I
right
start
ahead.
with this
Well, we
gentleman?
can start, if somebody wants to do open a text document, we can, because we have a teleprompter, so we can read this stuff. So we just need